Welcome to the SBP Podcast, the voice of mobile film. I'm your host, Susie Botello, and you're listening to episode 74. Before we get into this episode of the SBP Podcast, Mobile Filmmaking, I just want to warn you, just a couple of words that are thrown in here by our guest, very light profanity. Just having fun with that. Okay, let me get serious. Our guest in this episode is Rich RB Botto. RB is the founder and CEO of Stage32.com. Now, if you're not on Stage 32 as a member, which is free, by the way, then you should be. If you want to connect and network, learn and share with people in the film and television industries. So, are you a mobile filmmaker or producer? Let's get serious. Let's chat with RB. Hey everybody, I am here with one of my idols and a little bit of a celebrity. His name is Richard RB Botto. How do I pronounce your last name?
That is correct. Botto is correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, my last name is Botello, but we're not created equal.
No, I saw that and I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Pretty close.
Right? So for all our listeners, Richard is the founder and the creator. You run Stage32.com, which is a wonderful platform. I actually love your platform. I joined your platform, Stage 32. I believe it was like around 2015, early in 2015.
Right.
And the first person to greet me once I joined was you.
That's correct. Yeah, it still holds true today.
Yeah, well, I think you know what? I didn't know that was like a thing. So I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, the founder of this thing just like totally greeted me on this thing. He must think I'm special.
Well, that's been something that's been in place from the beginning. You know, we're in our 9th year now, which is hard to believe. We launched in 2011. And one of the things that was a decision that I made very, very early on before we launched was I wanted everybody to understand that I'm just like you. I'm not just the guy that came up with the idea for this platform. If you're not familiar with the platform, it's networking and education for film, television, and theater creatives. And it's over 600,000 people worldwide that are on the platform now and over 1,200 hours of education. And we work with hundreds of executives worldwide. It's been an amazing ride. But one of the things that I definitely strive for early on was the idea that this was going to be a collaborative community and that we were going to have a collaborative mindset. And I wanted you to feel that from the moment you signed up. And that's where that welcome message comes from, to basically say, look, you know, I'm a writer, I'm a filmmaker, I'm an actor, I'm a producer. I'm in the trenches just like you are every day. I'm looking to learn every day. I'm looking to collaborate every day. I'm looking to learn more about the industry every day, putting together projects every day, writing every day. I mean, so, you know, we're all in it together, and that message has resonated and I think has made the community what it is, because, you know, when you sign up, it takes away some of your cynicism. It disarms you a little bit that you're not just going on to another platform where there's going to be trolling and spam and all that. We don't allow any of that. So I appreciate you bringing up that, you know, welcome message, because it really, I feel, sets the tone for what the Stage 32 experience is and has been for the last 9 years.
You know, one of the really cool things about your platform that I noticed right off the bat, you know, I've been long on LinkedIn. I can't even remember since when, probably 2005 or something. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about seeing your platform come up, I think it was probably on LinkedIn that I found it, that it came my way. And it was like, oh my God, this is like the LinkedIn, but so souped up for this industry. I had a group, well, I still have a group there for video producers, right? And what I liked about your platform is that it's, instead of just having groups, right? It has the lounge, right? Where you have all these different kinds of specialties for filmmakers, for animators, for screenwriters, actors, all these different levels. And so that when people post and share something in one of those, it's appropriate and people know what to expect in each one, but you have a really nice variety of them. But you also do this thing where you give advice for script writers, and you have quite a number of programs for scripts. You have your log lines thing. You have the educational factor. And, of course, you have the ability for every member to have their own profile, which they can include photos, videos, descriptions, and, you have an employment section. I mean, you have everything that we love about social media and everything that was good. And I say was because I feel like LinkedIn is just like this animal that just keeps transforming and getting because of its failures,
Yeah.
So
well, I appreciate that, and every one of those observations is very astute. I mean, the thing about, well, first and foremost, I mean, back in 2014, Forbes did an article on us, and they called us the LinkedIn meets Linda for the film industry. A lot of people obviously are familiar with LinkedIn. They may not know Linda, but Linda at the time was the number one online education platform in the world. And we loved that comparison to an extent. We loved hearing LinkedIn meets Linda because the idea behind Stage 32 was not only to create a social network platform for people to connect, like-minded people to connect, all film, television, and digital creatives and professionals to connect. But the vision early on was it's fantastic to bring all these people into one place, but how do you train them? How do you get people to get the education from reliable sources and people doing it right now that's actionable and that could help them build their career and or, learn a new craft, especially in this day and age where we have a lot of multi-hyphenates and where, screenwriters are becoming filmmakers are producing and so on and so forth. Even actors, taking control of their own content, becoming filmmakers or writing their own content. Well, how do you train them? So we love the LinkedIn meets Linda comparison from that perspective, because the one thing I felt that LinkedIn never did was, they would talk about how people switch careers on average 6 times in their lifetime, but they didn't have any training. And then oddly enough, or coincidentally enough, after that Forbes article came out, a few months later, LinkedIn bought Linda for $1.9 billion. And we were very happy with that comparison at that point. But the one thing that I would say is that, I like the LinkedIn comparison from the standpoint that, yes, we are connecting people, and yes, it's a professional site in that way. But to me, LinkedIn is very staid. It's very I hate to use the word boring, but it kind of is. And we're not. Somebody said to me once, LinkedIn meets Facebook. I like that a little bit better. I like to just think that we are a very, very vibrant community that brings people together, helps train them. And as you mentioned, you mentioned our script services and everything like that. We look at it as we have 3 different divisions of Stage 32. There is the social media side, which of course is everything you talked about, where you can come in and create your profile, upload your reels, your screenplays, your log lines, any other media you might have, and then start getting to work on building relationships, which we know is the lifeblood of a lasting career in this business. Then we have the education division, and that is for anyone that is in a creative or professional field within film, television, and digital. You will find education. We have over 1,200 hours, as I mentioned earlier. And then there's the script services division, which doesn't just serve screenwriters. It serves producers and filmmakers and basically everybody, because within there, it's not only breaking down scripts from a writing standpoint, but it's breaking down scripts as far as budgets are concerned, financing is concerned. And within that, there are mentorship opportunities where you could come in and pick from a roster of executives. We work worldwide, and this is true of all of our script services. We have, probably 100 or so executives that are listed at any given time where you could come in and pick the executive that you want to either work with you on covering your script, getting on the phone with you to discuss your script, getting on the phone with you to discuss budgets, where your film fits in the marketplace, producing questions, any questions you have. So you are instantaneously connected to executives. So our whole entire mantra all the time is connecting, opportunity, access, and education. It's the idea that, you have these opportunities that you are completely in control of to connect with anybody, anywhere in the world, any of our 600,000 plus members. You can connect. You have the opportunity and access to get to any executive that we work with, that you can choose. All the opportunities are baked within all those services that we offer. And then, of course, there's the educational aspect, which goes back to the library of 1,200 hours of content.
One of the benefits that I also see in this is that combination of the professional experts and people in the television and film industry who have basically embraced your platform.
Yes.
And are willing to open their arms up to, like you mentioned, mentoring and providing advice and things like that. The cool thing about it is, and that's what happens with social media, of course. Like let's say they post something on your lounge and they're looking for help or advice in a specific thing. When people respond to that from that part of the industry, the upper level, right? They're actually not just helping that person. They're actually helping everybody in that network who may come into that issue or who wants to know, thinks about, that answer, is looking for that. Not everybody asks, when they're researching things. And so it's very cool to have a place where you have that, like you were saying, divisions, interesting word, but where you're actually creating bridges for people to connect within them, right?
Oh, without question. And I mean, they're all designed to give you access to people who are in the trenches right now, doing it right now. One of the things that drives me crazy about a lot of the premium, let's call it, services that are out there for film, for screenwriters, for actors, is that, the people that are teaching it or the people who run those companies have never had a day's experience in the business, or they did it, 20 or 30 years ago, and they're disseminating dated information. And that drives me insane, because there is nothing that could set back the career of a creative more than getting the wrong information or listening to the wrong voices. So it has been vitally important for us to, work with and have champions of people working within the industry who want to be part of the Stage 32 brand. And that took us some time, but I mean, now it's been incredible. Now we work with over 500 executives worldwide, and, we're partners with the biggest film markets and festivals in the world, including Cannes, AFM. We work with companies like Amazon. So it's been an extraordinary ride for us. And when you're a business owner, but also for me, it's doubly rewarding, because as a business owner and I'm a creative as well, when you start winning the hearts and minds of people who work in this industry, and production companies and management companies and agents start coming to you to use your services to cover screenplays that come through there, or films that come through there, or just to find talent, that's an extraordinary thing. And that's something that we're enormously proud of. And what you said earlier is absolutely true. When you're a creative and you're able to go into our lounges, or you're able to connect directly with these executives, it is, of course, a winning situation for the creative. But what a lot of people don't realize is it's a winning proposition for the executive as well. Producers are looking for material. Managers are looking for new talent. Agents are looking for new talent. Financiers are looking for places to put their money. So, actors are looking, casting directors and acting coaches are looking for talent. So there are so many people on the executive side. Everybody concentrates so much on the membership and going like, oh my God, what can this do for me? And, I get to talk to these executives and everything like that. But they don't realize the other side of that. These executives love working with us because we're bringing untapped talent and projects, material, content to them. And that has been one of the most rewarding things, is to see that sort of marriage between our executives and our members that have led to these unbelievable projects, including quite a few theatrical films that are going to be coming out this year, and short form digital content that's going to be on Quibi and that's been on Amazon. It's incredible, and that's enormously rewarding.
Yeah, because every producer knows, right, or anyone in the industry knows that if you are working in it and people find out about it, right, they contact you. They're like, "Hey, can you get me in? How can you help me get in? Can you get me a job doing this, or can you make my movie?" and all these things. But in this kind of a platform, they're always looking, of course. And before they even respond to somebody, they can, or even at the same time, they can find out who this person is.
Well, and that's it, right? And that's a great lesson within what you just said there, is that, for the people that are handling themselves correctly, that is absolutely true. There are, there are people that are going to be listening to this podcast, and there'll be people like this through the end of time that, come into this business and think that, everything happens overnight, or that they have created a staggering work of genius, or think that they are just so talented that they stand above the fray, and they come in with this look at me attitude, and nothing ever happens for them, because the reality of the situation is that people in this industry see right through that immediately. They see through the desperation, they see through the ego and the hubris. A lot of executives who have been in this business for more than 5 minutes will tell you that they can tell within 5 minutes of speaking to somebody if they get it or if they don't get it. And that doesn't mean that people that are just coming into the business are, that there aren't people that come in and act like that because they just don't have the knowledge. But that's what this platform is really all about, is that educational part of it, and that collaborative part of it, and that community part of it that you will encounter from the minute that you come in. And the fact that you can go into the lounges and ask questions, it'll allow you how to navigate the business. And that's the part of the equation that people ignore the most. They all understand the craft. They all understand how to get better, or they, if they're serious about it, they know how to go about it, but they don't understand how to navigate, how to speak to executives, how to approach executives, and most importantly, how to win champions. This is a relationship business. It's a tribal business. So yes, there are a ton of people that come on Stage 32 and have had enormous success, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. But there are also so many people that come onto the platform and they don't fill out their profile. They don't put up their reels. They don't put up their log lines. They don't put up a headshot, which is insane to me, or profile picture, I should say. So if somebody comes and looks at your profile, you know what? They're gone in 2 seconds because you're not putting anything out there. And it's a real lesson for people. Like, I tell this story all the time, or I tell a version of this story all the time, but it's inevitable that I will, I speak at a lot of festivals and conferences around the world. I get to teach and mentor. I'm blessed that way. And it's inevitable that somebody will come up to me at every single one of these things and say, "Oh, I was on your platform for, a few months. I didn't get anything out of it." And I'll pull out my phone and go, "Give me your name." And I'll look them up on Stage 32. And sure enough, there's no profile picture. There's no bio. They've made no posts. And, I say to them, it's like, it's like waiting for the doorbell to ring. Who's coming and giving you a job? Nobody is. You got to be out there and doing it. And you got to be putting your best face forward. You got to be giving yourself the best chance of success. So, like I like to say to people is, yes, I built a platform, but now it's up to you to utilize it in the right way and in the way that's going to be most beneficial to you. And in my opinion, if you're not working on relationships every single day of your life online, then you're failing yourself.
I've got one really important question that I wanted to ask you, but before I go there, I want to ask you something else, because I'm listening to you and I'm realizing that you have something which a lot of people in this industry have in order to succeed, since we're talking about that, right? This is a very difficult industry to get into. This isn't your regular 9 to 5, Monday through Friday job, maybe a weekend here and there type of a thing. It's not really even a clock in, clock out job per se.
Right.
So what I find in you, like I find in many people who are willing to create something from the ground up, is the passion. Where does your passion come from?
I mean, I think it's just in me. I love this business. I love business in general. So, it is kind of an interesting mix in a way to create, but it is and it isn't in a lot of ways. The fact that I'm running a platform, which is an entrepreneurial pursuit, that started as a startup and built into something bigger now. But it's in an arena that I love and that I work in, with the acting and the writing and the producing and the filmmaking and all of that. And I also love the business of filmmaking, the business of the industry, the business of producing. I love all of that. So it's a nice mix. So I'm very passionate about it there. But I'm very passionate about entrepreneurial pursuits. And I think it's something that melds perfectly into this idea of wanting to be successful as a creative, because I say this all the time, but if you are a creative, you're an entrepreneur. You are the CEO of you. You're running your own business. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. The fact of the matter is, people say, I want to build a career in the business. Well, if you are building a career, guess what you're doing? You're building a business. And the name of the business is You Inc. And, you're creating for a living, or you're producing for a living. And that means you got to be on the hustle and the grind 24/7, 365. And when I say that, I don't mean that you don't sleep and everything like that. What I'm saying is you adopt a mindset, and you adopt a strategy, and you adopt a schedule. Like people say to me, oh, you say you network for an hour every day, or your relationship build for an hour every day. Oh, that's got to be bullshit. I look at your Instagram, you're everywhere, you're doing this. It's not. It really isn't. I get up every morning, and you don't know what time I get up, and you're not sitting there in my living room, and you're not sitting there watching me get on Stage 32 and send DMs and send network requests and answer network requests and connect with people who are who are posting interesting things and everything like that. You're not seeing it. You're not seeing me on the plane when I'm flying from here to there, hooking up to the Wi-Fi and doing the same thing. But it is a reality, because I understand that no matter how successful you are in this business, and, you brought up Steven Spielberg before we got on, so I'll use him as an example. It doesn't matter if you're Steven Spielberg, you're still fighting along the way. You're still fighting to get your passion projects off the ground. You're still struggling to get things made. I always say he had to go to India to get the money for Lincoln. Like, who wouldn't give him the money in the States? Nobody. He had to go to India. I mean, so you're always on the grind. You're always on the hustle. And I think if you embrace that from minute one and understand that this is a never-ending educational process, you're always learning. Things are always changing. I mean, the landscape today changes. I don't even want to say by the day. It seems like it changes by the hour. And if you're not reading up on it, if you're not in the middle of it, and you're not a part of it, and you're not engaging with it, and you're not connecting with it, and you're not connecting with people doing it, you're not going to make it. I mean, it's that simple, And if you're going to sit in a room and not be passionate about it, or if you're going to be passionate about it but really not take action on it, you're not going to win. And I know there are probably people listening right now who are introverted, or who this is, a struggle for them to be out there and to make posts. And maybe you're a passive observer on social media. I would urge you to get by it. And I know that sounds very easy, but I would urge you to get by it by doing a couple of really simple things, such as sharing content, thanking people for sharing content, complimenting people if they do something cool on social media, or if they bring you value in any way. Try to bring people value in your day-to-day exchanges on social media. If you're that petrified of it, dip a toe in, do a little at a time. And as you start getting responses, and as people start engaging with you, and, you start realizing that when you come from a place of selflessness, people respond, you'll want to do it more and more. And the next thing you know, you'll be actually enjoying it. So there's a home for everybody on social media. There's certainly a home for everybody on Stage 32. But if you're not bringing the passion, and you're not bringing the energy, and you're not being true to what you're really looking to accomplish, I'm telling you, the climb is hard enough. Don't make it harder by not taking action on all of that. You will make it harder if you don't.
I was on a bus. Well, actually, it wasn't a bus. It was the trolley going to Comic-Con this year. And there was a kid there, and I was talking to him because I talk to everybody, Richard. And he says to me, how do you find your passion, though? How do you know what your passion is? And I thought for a minute, and I told him, I said, if you're ever doing anything in your world, in your life, where you completely zone out while you're doing it, and you forget about time and nothing else matters, that's where your passion is. Somehow you got to craft that into something. And that crafting process of connecting with your passion gives you the energy to persevere and the strength, right?
Oh, I totally agree with that. I also think that I totally agree with that. I think you're 100% right. And it's funny, even after all this time, you talk about the zoning out. I'm in the middle of negotiating a deal to write a new screenplay, and the screenplay has been on my mind constantly. And I know when I'm getting in the zone, that when I lose like 5 to 8 minutes, like all of a sudden I snap out of something. I'm like, oh, crap, because you're in your head thinking, you can't stop thinking about the script. But I would also say that if you have to ask yourself whether you're passionate about something, you're probably not. And you probably should reevaluate that. And I do think that when it comes to a creative pursuit, you also have to ask yourself why you're doing it. I sometimes ask, I got to speak in front of a class of actors recently, and I said, how many people are doing this because they can't do anything else? And, maybe 3/4 of the class raised their hands. And I said, how many are doing this because they just love acting? And, it was probably 90% of the room. And I said, how many of you are doing this for the money or the fame? And, the amount of hands that went up, it was probably maybe a little less than half the room, and they were allowed to answer. Obviously, they were allowed to answer multiple of these questions, or to any of them. But that idea that, you're doing it for the money and the fame, if that's the reason why, man, that could be a secondary thing. But you got to be doing it for the passion and for the craft and for the reasons that make you want to create art. Because if that's what you're doing it for, and you're doing it well, and you're doing it with passion, and you're doing it while making connections that matter and winning champions of you and your work, then you know what? The money and the fame will come.
You said something there, because as art, when I was growing up and I would tell people that I wanted to be an artist, they would look at me, they looked at me like they were going to cry for me. Oh, no, Susie's going to be an artist. She's going to be lying on a sidewalk somewhere, starving to death.
Right.
And I was like, well, what is your second option? They're, well, you could be a dentist, you could do. And I'm looking at these things going, oh, just shoot me now, for God's sake. I don't feel anything for doing any of these things. But you know what? What you just said, it's first you do it for the passion, and you love doing it. And what happens is when you're doing it for that reason, these doors open up, and the money is a secondary thing in a way. That actually leads me to a question that I wanted to ask you that was really important that I said I wouldn't. And that is, what really grinds people about the filmmaking, because it is an art, but it's also a science, is the business end of making a profit. Like outside of Hollywood, how would someone make a profit? And can a low budget filmmaker make a profit from their products? Because films are products, right?
They certainly are. Yeah. And yeah, they absolutely are. And I would say the answer to that question is it's never been an easier time to make a profit. And it's never been a better time to be out there making films. And I would add that if you're thinking Hollywood and you're not in Hollywood, stop thinking Hollywood, because nothing is really being made out here outside of the studio system and television. So what I would say is that, in this era where, and we're talking, we're on a mobile filmmaking podcast, where you can shoot a film on your phone, but you could also shoot a film and rent equipment or buy equipment, cheaper than ever. more inexpensively than ever before, and with the barrier of entry lower than it's ever been, and with the absolute plethora, and it's growing again, probably tenfold, while we're talking, of places where you could distribute content right now, and where you could distribute it in a way where you could actually make some money. I don't see how. I think that now is the time to be doing it. You absolutely can turn a profit. But here's the thing, okay? You have to have the education on how to do it. You have to have the knowledge on how to do it. And if you don't have the knowledge and you don't have the time to learn, or you don't feel like you want to learn it, you got to have great producers. Because you need somebody that's either going to be, if you're, most filmmakers that I run into, and it's the same thing. Look, I mean, it's the same thing with some producers as well. I mean, you run into them and they say, my movie needs to be made for this much. You see this problem all the time when people try to raise financing is they don't have a true budget. They don't have a low-end budget. They don't know how cheaply they can make the film. They don't look at the screenplay and figure out, how they can make the set pieces, or, combine scenes, or, take people out of a car and put them into a room to have this conversation can save them money, or, how maybe it doesn't have to be shot in 1970. Maybe it could be today, and we're not, it doesn't need to be a period piece. All these things need to be looked at. And what ends up happening, what you need to have is you need to have perspective. You need to be honest with yourself, which is very, very difficult for people because they're not able to check their ego at the door, and they're not able to check the preciousness of the material, or how precious they are about the material at the door. And you need to let go of all that. And if you do, and you can make the film as inexpensively as possible, as honestly as possible, with as many assets as possible, you're going to give yourself the best chance of either being noticed or being able to, if you handle yourself right on the front end before you do the financing, find the right sales agent or distributor early on that could help you take it to the next level, or, make the relationships with the right film festivals to get you seen in the right places. But what I'm saying is that there's a million avenues. You just have to be willing to put in the time and to learn about them and to explore them. And, again, I can't stress this enough, to come from a place of pure honesty where you're giving yourself the best chance to win. I know a lot of people in this business who have made, 10, 15, 20 independent films. And, some of them have done unbelievable and some of them have done poorly. And they depended on theatrical throughout, but they made their films the right way and came out ahead the entire way, who now are beyond. Now they're putting multiple projects into play because there's all these different places to bring them. They're able to kind of go to their investors and say, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this, we could do that. There's 5 different options, as opposed to where it used to be that, you'd make an independent film and you bring it to a festival, or you'd hope that you would get, one of the, 40 screens in New York, or, that you could platform the thing up, or get a sales agent or a distributor that can get you on a few of those screens to platform up. It's very, very different now. It's vastly different now, and it's continuing to change, but it's up to you to be on top of what's going on with that sea change.
What about the story, Rich? How important is the story to your project? Like, if you focus on your story, would that actually hurt your profitability of a production? Because some people think, obviously, it depends on who's funding it, right? And this is kind of a topic for mobile filmmakers. If you're self-funding it, you have to answer to no one. But how important is the story to that? Story
is everything. I mean, it really is everything. And I mean, I spoke earlier about the screenplay that I'm in negotiations to write. I mean, one of the conversations that we've had already, I mean, that we haven't even, I haven't typed fade in yet. We don't have the contracts yet. But one of the things that we've talked about on a producing level is, where does a story like this live? Like, in this day and age right now, and again, by the time I write it, by the time it gets, it goes through rewrites and everything like that, it could be 8-10 months down the road. By the time you film it, you could be a year and a half out, and the landscape could be completely different again. But at this moment, where do we see this thing living? And we talked about theatrical. Okay, well, if this movie's made for, if it's 5 million, it's this. If it's 20 million, it's this. If it's $1 million, it's this. We talk it all the way through, but it all begins where could this story live? Where are people consuming this kind of story? Who'd be interested in this kind of story? And I think that that's something that a lot of filmmakers think about after the fact. A lot of producers think about after the fact. Everybody gets so caught up in wanting to do that mad 100-yard dash to get filming that they don't realize that maybe they should take their time and do a few laps around the track and, think about the business end of it. Where does this story live? What do we want this story to be? Who is truly, and I use the word truly, emphasize the word truly, who is truly the audience for this film? Because it's such an important question to be asking today. And it's such an important question. And I see producers turn down projects because they don't have the right answer, or financiers turn down funding a project because the producers don't have or the filmmakers or the screenwriter, they don't have the right answer to that question. The answer to that question is never everyone. It's this is the audience for that film, and this is where this film could live, and this is our path to profitability if we execute. And those are all things you got to be thinking about on the story level. But man, regardless, whether you're shooting a no-budget film or whether you're shooting a friggin' $200 million tentpole, story is everything. It's just everything. It's got to be airtight.
Yeah. Well, I have another question for you. I feel like I'm queuing you up to each question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Should filmmakers write their own scripts to shoot them, or should they write them to present them to someone like you?
Well, I think it just depends on person to person. I am a big advocate in this day and age with, the fact, everything that we talked about earlier as far as the barrier of entry and the costs of filmmaking, being lower than ever, and the accessibility and the ways to distribute content being more plentiful than ever. I am a big believer in controlling as much as you can control for as long as you can control it. Everybody talks about this Hollywood thing. Okay, let's say you get into the Hollywood machinery, you get yourself a manager and an agent, and, you have some success with a film, on a studio level or a mid-major level. Well, guess what? They're going to want to put you in a box now. They're going to want you to do that film over and over and over again. That's fine. You may want to have that kind of career, and you're going to get paid well to do it. But, if you're looking to keep any sort of creative leverage in a lot of ways, or stretch your creative muscles in any way, I'm a big believer in controlling as much as you can control. And that's why I think it's so important, and why it's been such an emphasis for Stage 32 to have this broad library of education. Because, as I said earlier, you do have actors now. We hear it all the time. That actor that's been going on auditions for 5 or 6 years, 7 years. They have somebody that has a script that they wrote just for them, and they want to get it made, but nobody wants to get it made because they're not a proven entity. So they start learning filmmaking. They start learning how to make films, and they're like, you know what? I'll direct myself in this thing. And I think that that's great. You have screenwriters who have been pushing the rock up the hill for, the boulder up the hill for the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years that are now saying, you know what? Fuck it. I don't want, I'm not going to go through the machinery anymore. I'm going to direct this thing myself. But they got to learn how to do it. And they got to learn the producing end, or they got to go out and hire a producer that is willing to work with them and that understands the business end and will allow them to film their vision in the manner that they want it. So to me, I don't care if you're a filmmaker who wants to write their own content, or if you have a great idea and you want to hire a screenwriter to write that screenplay. My whole thing is, if you can control it, if you can make a film and control it all the way up until the point where you have to maybe get a sales agent or a distributor involved, you're doing pretty well for yourself. So you have to ask yourself, where do you want to sit in the industry? Do you want to be a filmmaker for hire? Do you want to be, somebody that's going to, again, get kind of into the studio system? Well, there's a certain path for that. Are you somebody that wants to continue to make, sort of low budget indies, or things that, Netflix might buy or, now, anywhere now. I mean, Amazon, Hulu, on and on and on. You want to make those kinds of projects? Well, you can, but, you probably want your first couple to be things where you can control your artistic vision as far as you can so that it's not bastardized in any way and you're not being criticized in any way and it's not being taken away from you in any way. And you could explain why what's on the screen mattered to you. So, it's in this world, in this DIY world, and in this world where, again, we have so many opportunities where we could present our art and how we could film our art and who we can work with and choosing our tribe and finding our tribe with platforms like Stage 32, which I think is monumentally important, finding quality people, finding a quality DP, so on and so forth. My whole thing is control it as far as you can control it for as long as you can control it.
One of the reasons why we, to our listeners, why we're talking to Richard is because I really find his platform ideal for mobile filmmakers. And instead of me sharing all the reasons why, Richard, invite our listeners to come to the platform if they're mobile filmmakers or smartphone video producers.
Yeah, absolutely. And call me RB. Nobody calls me Richard.
RB. So, nice. I love it.
My friends call me RB. Anyway, no. So, well, listen, I mean, anybody that's listening to this, mobile filmmakers, screenwriters, actors, whoever's listening, the idea in this, but the reason I started this platform was, I really honestly started it for myself because being in the business for a few years before I launched, the things that became absolutely evident to me were the fact that, one, absolutely, definitively, undeniably, and I've said it a few times now, this is a relationship business. A lot of people that are, everybody's guilty of this, and I'm sure most people listening are guilty of this. There is a tendency when you are starting out to say, to go on social media or to go to an event and meet somebody of stature or somebody that's accomplished something and say, look at read my, will you read my, will you look at my? And the honest part of that is that you're not going to get read and they're not going to look at your film. And here's the reason why. It takes time to read a screenplay. It takes time to watch a film. If you're an unproven entity or an unknown quantity, why would anybody spend 2 hours or, an hour and a half watching a film with 2 hours reading a screenplay or whatever if they don't know you, okay? Especially given the fact that everybody you're approaching, obviously because they're successful, they're busy. Okay, they're very busy. I mean, managers read all day, and they have scripts from their own clients and people who champion other writers to them, and those are always going to take priority. They're not going to read the unknown entity, okay? Same thing, it's managers, agents, producers. Same thing with producers. Producers get scripts sent to them all the time from people they know, projects, that are in development from people that have attachments, from people they know all day long. So how do you break through with that? Well, you break through with that by creating relationships. And that was something I realized very early on. So I wanted to have a platform that was unlike other social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, which is, it's obviously all inclusive. Anyone could join. I wanted to have a community like that or a platform like that, but only for creatives and only for film, television, and digital creatives. So I built it for myself with the understanding that it was going to take me years to build those relationships that really, really made a difference. It was going to take years for me to build relationships with executives to make them want to be a part of this movement that we were trying to create. It was going to take years for institutions like Cannes and AFM to understand what we were doing and to trust us enough to pull it off and then to want to work with us. And now we're the education partner of both of them. All those things took 4 or 5 years. This project that I'm working on now that I mentioned earlier, and there's 3 other projects that I'm in the middle of as a producer and a writer, all of them came from relationships that took about 3, 4, 5 years to, mature, I guess, to get to the point where we all trusted each other enough to say, okay, we should be doing some projects together. Let's find some stuff to work on together. So you need to understand that if you want to be successful in this business, you need to embrace a long game mentality. And part of that long game mentality is the relationship building so that you can win champions of you and your work, so that you can get read, and so that people do want to look at your work. And then the big benefit of all of that is if they start, if you start winning those champions and they are looking at your material, looking at your content, looking at your reels, then they become champions of you. And then they become, they come out and they become advocates of you and your work, and they get to carry that message to people that matter. That's very powerful. So I know I spent a lot of time just talking about that one part of it, but I can't emphasize it enough. If you embrace a long-term mentality, if you get on this platform and start connecting and spend an hour or two relationship building every day and treating it like a job. And like I said, when you start getting responses and people start responding to you and you start building up that network, it's going to become fun. And I don't even look at it as a job anymore. I look at it as just part of my day, and I love it. Okay. So you will feel the same way if you put in that time and effort. So that's part one of why you should be on the platform. Part two is the resources. And I'm not just talking about the premium, education, script services. There are so many free resources on Stage 32. Our blog alone has over 2,000 entries. And, we have guest bloggers that range from Oscar winners to BAFTA winners to Emmy winners to Tony winners, you name it. Okay. I mean, high quality, high profile people, but also people in the trenches, just like we are every day, writing inspirational, motivational, aspirational, and very educational material that is completely free, and that, you could lose yourself in for, months really with the amount of content that's there. We have a ton of free webinars as well. And we always offer free webinars that we do from time to time. Every few weeks, we usually do something. Then we have all the premium education content. And then we have all the services designed to give you access directly to the gatekeepers, the decision makers, the managers, the agents, the producers, the financiers, the directors of development, on and on and on and on, that cut down on your path. I mean, obviously the easiest way to be successful is to have a direct through line to these decision makers, and we offer that. And that saves you a hell of a lot of time as well. So those are all the reasons. But I would tell you, man, if you're going to join, make sure that you're in it. Make sure, like I said, you're joining, that, you're going to put, it's free to join, by the way. You put your profile up, you put that bio up, you put your reels up, you put your screenplays up, put your log lines up, on and on and on and on. You're putting your best face forward, because again, a lot of people don't realize online that, you may be sleeping and you may lose an opportunity. A producer might see something you posted and go, wow, that's a really insightful, really intriguing post. I want to learn more about this person, and then go to your profile and find nothing and go, well, okay, on to the next. So it's very, very important that if you're going to be on the platform, that you do utilize it the right way. And that's true of any platform you're on, that you're utilizing it the correct way.
That's exactly. You just ended that with what I was going to say next. It's like you should do that with any platform you go, even if you don't, you're not going to be able to interact with this particular platform so much, not meaning yours though, but any platform, right? You should at least fill out everything so that even if you're not there, people can look at you and see you. You're promoting yourself. It's almost like an advertising thing, right?
Well, it's the opportunity to network and be connected 24/7, 365. Even when you're sleeping, you might not even know you're being connected to, you might not know the opportunity you're missing out on. I mean, again, this is why it's such an incredible time to be in this business and to be a creative, is because these opportunities exist. They didn't exist 10, 15, 20 years ago. And it's an amazing time. But again, when you have platforms like this, that means there's going to be more competition. When you have a lower barrier of entry, that means there's going to be more competition. That means there's going to be more noise. Go on Twitter and just look at your Twitter feed, and it's pure noise. You got to sift through it to try to find, one nugget of information that might benefit you. Okay. How do you rise above that noise? Well, the way you rise above that noise is by being visible, being active, and making sure that the front of your house and the inside of your house are meticulous, attractive, inviting, and provide everything that anyone needs to know about you and about how they're going to be comfortable, I guess you could say, while you're not there. You know what I mean? While you're at work, or while you're sleeping. I mean, it's really that simple, but a lot of people don't take advantage of it. In fact, I would say a majority of the people, don't think about it enough and don't challenge themselves enough. Like, I know people on stage, and we talk to a lot of people who have had major success on Stage 32, and the common denominator with all of them is their profiles are completely filled out. They're up to date. All their media is there. And I know people within that group that actually set like a calendar reminder every 30 to 60 days to update their bios on all their social media, to make sure if there's anything new that they put it in there. If they missed anything, to review them. And it's smart. I mean, think about it. I mean, why? I mean, it's like going on. You brought up LinkedIn earlier, and LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't use it as a creative. I think it's a waste of time for creatives, to be perfectly honest with you. And and as far as the creative forms are concerned, I used to joke that it's where conversations go to die. But for white collar people and certain industries and everything, I totally see the value in it. But imagine if you were, and I'll just pick the first profession that comes to my head, like a pharmaceutical salesperson, okay? Pharmaceutical sales is a pretty competitive business. You get to drive around, you make a lot of money, and a lot of people want that job. So imagine, you go on LinkedIn and you want to, you don't put your resume up. You put a little thing up that says, I want to do pharmaceutical advertising, and you don't put your resume up. Well, if you're working for like Ortho and you're a recruiter and you do a search on LinkedIn for people who either work in that profession or have it listed on their profile, if you see that everything is blank, guess what? You're in the garbage. You're not even being looked at again. You're done, right? It's the same thing as a filmmaker or a screenwriter or an actor. It's such a competitive business. Why are you putting yourself at a disadvantage by not letting people know what you've done, what you've accomplished, what you're hoping to accomplish, what you're looking to do, being out there, being active, helping people, being selfless? Like, why wouldn't you do that? I don't get it. Like, you asked me earlier about my passion. Part of my passion is I know I can outwork anyone. Part of my passion is I know I could put my best face out there, and it may not be the most extraordinary resume, but it's pretty damn good. And I also know when I put myself out there that I'm coming from a place of selflessness and I'm giving. Nobody can fight me on that. You go look at my Instagram. You go look at what I post on Stage 32. It is a lot of giving of content and trying to help people and everything like that. It is part of my personal brand. And anyone listening to this podcast, anyone who's listening right now, if you don't think you have a personal brand, you are wrong. And if your personal brand is silent, like if you're not doing anything, that's your personal brand. Your personal brand is silence. Nobody knows, okay? If you're putting up a bio that says, I'm a screenwriter, your personal brand is laziness, okay? So understand that every single thing that you do online is no different, or don't do, is no different than anything you do or don't do in the real world. People are going to look at you and they're going to say, he or she is very passive. He or she really doesn't want it. He or she really isn't, really going after it aggressively. I mean, it shows. People see that, and people will go look elsewhere for who they want to work with. I see it. Look, I'm at a distinct advantage to talk about this because I've been running this platform for 9 years, and I see it every day. I mean, I see it every day, whether I want to see it or not. I see it every day.
It's true. I see it also in what you were talking about earlier, in people who think they can just come in one day, put a little thing up, or just tap you on the shoulder, say, here, look at my movie, or do this, or make me a hero in this thing. And it's like, give me something. You know what I mean? I mean, show me something is what I mean.
Well, Susie, I'll tell you this. And this is going to sound like an exaggeration, but I want to put it in perspective. There's 600,000 Stage 32 members. We have almost 200,000 Twitter followers on the Stage 32 account. If you combine Stage 32 and Script Services, over 200,000. You had Facebook in there. Our Stage 32 front-facing social media, probably across all our platforms, probably has about 500,000 followers. My personal has well over 100 across Twitter, Instagram, and others. So there's a lot of, my point of this is that there's a lot of contact points and a lot of people in the pool. When I tell you across those platforms and, from DMs and posts and emails and everything else you can think of, that we get upwards of 100 to 150 people a day who say, look at my, donate to my, invest in my, read my, and we don't know any of them. Yeah, and they're too lazy to even look. Like we get people that say, what's stage 32? Well, if you're too lazy to look it up and type stage, it'll take you less characters to put stage32.com in a browser than it does to type what's stage 32 all about. If you're that lazy, again, that's your brand. And you're if you think that people are going to give you something for nothing, they're not in this business and not in life in general. You need to build relationships. You need to build trust. You need to build your profile and your brand to the point where people say, yeah, I want to read you. Yeah, I want to watch your film because so-and-so told me that you're tremendous and I trust so-and-so. Person A said that you're a great writer and I trust person A. That's how you win. That's how this business works. People don't want their time wasted. It's, I always say this, but people say time is money. Bullshit. Time is time. Yeah. You get money back. You can't get time back.
It's true.
People who are successful in this business value their time.
Yeah, and you can't, and it's not always equal. When people say time is money, it's like, well, you can't equal that. You worked for 4 hours and earned $100,000. Someone else worked for 4 hours and gained $50.
That's exactly right. 100% right.
Yeah. So it's I could tell now. See, it seems, and probably for our listeners, you can hear it now. The conversation really begins, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I want to do. Wow, time flew. Talk about being in the zone. This happens. I wanted to do a little bit of a game where I want to put you on the spot for this. Are you game for the game?
I am game for the game.
All right, let's do this. Really quick, I'm going to give you 20 seconds, and I've got an alarm that'll go off.
Okay.
20 seconds to rattle off the most, the films that you have watched in your entire lifetime, like 25 years or whatever, and that have made a real difference in you or have most impressed you. Ready?
Creatively?
In whatever you are today, in the You Inc. Okay. Get set. Go.
Oh man, Raging Bull for sure. Goodfellas for sure. The Godfather for sure. You can see that theme. Scorsese and Coppola. Sideways from a pure writing standpoint. Parasite this year for sure. God. I was going to say Magnolia, Boogie Nights. There's so many. It's funny. I'm going by director because so many have had an influence on me, and screenwriters, and so many have had an influence on me. Yeah, that was a tough one.
It is, because if you're in this business, you grew up watching films, right?
Yeah, and you grow up watching films, and it's also, for me as a writer, even as an actor, but as a writer and even as a producer, you kind of, like, for me as a producer, there's certain films I watch almost from it's crazy, but almost from a budgeting, how they put it together, how they structure this thing standpoint as I'm watching the film. So I'm influenced in a variety, myriad ways. I mean, it's very interesting. Yeah. It's a tough question.
Do you have Netflix?
I do.
Okay, so you can always expense that as your business expense, right?
You can. There's a lot of things you could expense.
One last thing before we go off. I know it's Friday too. By the way, happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
I wanted to ask you just this one final thing, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
A message that part of the reason the purpose of anyone even coming here to listen to this episode is because my goal is to inspire people to share their stories. And I really, truly believe the best way to do it is through filmmaking. For people who don't have the budget or the resources or just downright want to be innovative, whatever the reason, I really believe in, especially how things are happening this year, 2020, with the latest phones and the technology and everything, that smartphone filmmaking is really a viable solution to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
What message would you send to all the people listening right now that might inspire them to follow their dream in the filmmaking sense?
Well, first of all, oddly enough, that we're doing this interview today, I believe that I read this morning, or I saw a headline that Lady Gaga filmed her latest video on a mobile phone. So there you go. So it's happening everywhere. I would say, as far as following your dream, ask yourself these questions, okay? First of all, is it, like we said earlier, is it truly your passion? Because if it isn't, I would say, look to do something else, only because it is a marathon, not a sprint. It is dealing with negativity. It's dealing with, well, let me say not negativity. It's dealing with rejection and learning how to deal with rejection and how to navigate that. I should mention that if you are dealing with negativity and negative voices, and Susie, you mentioned that earlier as part of your journey, get rid of them. You want people that understand your creative journey and support it. And that's another thing that you will get on Stage 32. So the first question I would ask is, am I passionate about it? The second question I would ask is, what am I willing to do to get it? Okay. What am I willing to sacrifice? Am I really truly serious about it to the point where, I was going to binge watch, Mindhunter tonight, but, instead I'm going to put pen to paper, or I'm going to storyboard my movie, or I'm going to, write that next scene, or I'm going to run a monologue or learn something, or whatever the hell it is. Are you willing to sacrifice? Because it does take a certain amount of sacrifice, especially for people who have full-time jobs. And by the way, I have one. Running Stage 32 takes me, it's a 50 to 70 hour week for me every week, but I still find time, to produce and to write and to, I find time for the things that matter to me because I'm passionate about it. So what are you willing to and sometimes that means a lot of sacrificing. Sometimes it means, I'm not out, I have to sacrifice a night with the guys or with the friends or whatever. It just is what it is. All right. And then the third thing I would ask yourself is, am I willing to put myself out there in a selfless way that might be a little bit outside of my comfort zone by, again, sharing content, talking to people, complimenting people, giving to people, obeying what I say is the rule of 3, where you give 3 times or you offer to give 3 times before you ever ask for anything. Am I willing to do that? Am I willing to put myself out there and be serious about that and treat my pursuits like a business? And like I'm at a networking, or I'm at a networking party or a conference or a networking conference every day of my life. Every day I have an opportunity to be at one of those conferences. I'm going to treat it that way. So I'm going to treat my networking, my relationship building like a business. If you're willing to do those things, it doesn't matter if you don't have money to shoot a film, because you can pick up a camera and you can find people, and you will find people who will take a journey with you if you are that type of person, and who will go make a film with you on the weekends or at night or whenever the hell, they can do it for little to no money. You can do these things, and you will do them if you embrace that mindset. So that's what I would say. I would just say, look, don't put time limits on yourself. Okay, I wanted to add that. Don't say, if it doesn't happen to me by the end of next month or next year, don't do it, because you never know when, the bricks that you're laying every single day are suddenly one day going to become a structure that supports you, and that other people want to live in. So don't put time limits on yourself. Just go after it with passion. Come from a selfless place as often as you possibly can. Give as much as you can, and embrace the long game mentality. Just understand, if you could say to yourself, like I said, this is a marathon, not a sprint, There is no such thing as an overnight success. It's going to take work. It's going to take relationships. It's going to take champions. If you embrace that, I promise you every day will be fun. Every day will be challenging in a cool and fun way. And one day you're going to wake up and go, holy shit, look at this unbelievable community I have around me. Look at this incredible mountain of support that I have. And it will happen, but it takes time. So don't be fearful of that and don't rush things. Take your time. It's like I say to people too, I know I keep rambling and I keep using these metaphors, but it really is true. You want to, you decide one morning you wake up that you want to lose 20 pounds, okay? You're not going to lose 20 pounds by tomorrow, all right? It's going to take time. You want to go in the gym and you want to, put on 10 pounds of muscle mass, or, you want to cut up, or whatever it is. It's not going to happen in a day. It's going to take time. You're going to have to lay brick by brick. You're going to have the discipline to do it. You're going to have the discipline with your meals. You're going to have the discipline with your workouts and all those things. It's the same thing with this business. It really, really is. It's structure, it's strategy, it's adhering to a schedule and a mindset. And really, at the end of the day, that's what wins.
Wow, that's really powerful. And don't get intimidated. Don't let anyone or anything intimidate you into what you want to do, right?
100%. Don't let anybody. And again, I'm not joking. Cut out the negative voices. If it's your mother and she's giving you shit, cut her out. Can't talk to you, Ma. Can't talk to you for a few months till I get myself where I need to be mentally. You don't need negative voices around you. Not everybody's going to understand your creative pursuit. If they're still great friends and they support you anyway, that's fine. But if you have people telling you can't do it, or you won't do it, or you're ridiculous or whatever, and this goes for any pursuit in general, cut them out. Cut them the hell out. And surround yourself with like-minded people who are doing what you're doing. Go on stage. If you're a screenwriter, go on Stage 32 and find other screenwriters that you could trade scripts with. Okay? Vet them out. Make sure that they're of the level that you want to trade scripts with, and do it. You're a filmmaker. Find filmmakers that you could create a little online group with. This happens all day long on Stage 32, by the way. You can find a little online group that, you form through Stage 32, and you guys exchange clips, ideas, whatever. Find your support group. It matters. It matters. So when you wake up every morning, you sit there and you go, I have that. I have these 5, 10, 15, 20 people, or in the case of Stage 32, 600,000 freaking people around the world that want to do the same thing that I want to do. And I'm going to stay connected with them. That's the power of that platform. And I'm not saying that from ego, hubris, or anything else. That's why I built it. So I have that. That freaking community lifts me up every day.
Because you rock, and you love to be around people who rock, and other people who are rocking. We're all rocking together, guys.
That's it. That's it.
Awesome.
It's a collaborative business. Find your tribe, find those true collaborators, find the people you want to be with, and roll.
Yes. That's why they call it rock and roll, right?
That's it. There you go.
All right. Well, thank you. Say goodbye to our listeners.
Well, goodbye. Thanks for listening this long. If you're still here, I hope I didn't ramble too long. Feel free to connect with me anywhere. I also should have mentioned, I wrote first of all, if you want to connect with me, when you sign up for Stage 32, you will see that welcome message on your wall. That message is automated, but everything, if you respond to that message, my response will not be automated. I respond to everyone who writes to me. If it doesn't happen overnight, it might take a little while because I do get a ridiculous amount of correspondence, which I love, but it takes me a little time sometimes. So please do feel free to connect with me there. If you're on social, you can connect with me on Twitter and Instagram at my initials, RB. Walks into a bar. That's RB walks into a bar. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I wrote a book called Crowdsourcing for Filmmakers, Indie Film and the Power of the Crowd. People think that crowdsourcing is crowdfunding. It is not. It's completely different. Crowdsourcing is about everything that we were talking about today. It's about branding, creating a brand of you and your work, building those relationships, how to go about building those relationships, both online and offline, how to win champions, how to build your tribe. I was hired by Focal Press to write the book. It's on Amazon. It's free on Audible. If you love my unbelievably gravelly voice, whiskey soaked voice, you could listen to me for 10 hours and 40 minutes on the audiobook. The audiobook is actually free. You can go to Audible which is the Amazon audiobook company, audible.com, and look up crowdsourcing for filmmakers, and you could download it for free. And I'm very proud to say it has between Amazon and Audible, over 100 5-star reviews. So I'm very pleased about that. So there you go. A lot of resources, a lot of information. If you're interested in more of what we talked about today, it's all in the book.
Awesome. Are there any other projects, though, that we should know about?
Well, I mean, quite a few that are coming through Stage 32 right now. We have one that Eli Roth is producing, and another one that Malin Ackerman and Alec Baldwin are starring in, and Malin is producing, called Chick Fight, that we were heavily involved in. I am also in the process of producing 3 films. I have a TV pilot that I wrote that is now making its way. We have quite a few attachments that I can't name yet, but it's going through that point where now we have everything packaged and it's going out to all the agencies and everything like that. So a lot of things going on. Yeah.
Oh, guys, you want to follow RB wherever you can then, and stay on top of it. And again, do join the stage32.com, be a member, and you'll see me there too. So connect with me, connect with RB. You heard him, 600,000 plus members, and he finds time somehow to answer to everyone who writes to him. So that's awesome.
Well, I that's what's important, man. It's I have to practice what I preach, right? You got to stay connected to everybody, respond to people who respond to you, and always remember that no connection's a bad connection. You know, just connect with as many people as you can and handle your business right, and you'll do fine.